Hello everyone, the Nerdy Steve here with special guest Luigi, and today we will be featuring a blue-white control deck. A link to the list is in the description below. I'm going to talk about a little bit of the card choices, the general game plan, and about the sideboard, and then we'll play a couple of matches. So, let's go. Oh, do you not like control? Luigi does not like control. So, Luigi doesn't like control, but I like control. And what is control? So I like to think of it as a deck with kind of the game plan of early game, you are using your counter magic and removal to kind of one for one your opponent's cards. And that's why we have, March of the Otherworldly Light and Portable Hole. And then we have counter magic in maybe Censor and Dovin's Veto. So early game, you want to make sure your opponent doesn't get too far ahead with their game plan or with their aggressive game plan, right? And put you at a low life total. And then mid to late game, the second part of the plan is to use your really, really powerful spells, like maybe Teferi or the Wandering Emperor, to generate board and card advantage over time and then protect those cards with your counter magic. And eventually, you will just overwhelm your opponent with the cards that you are now drawing with Teferi or the creatures creating with Wandering Emperor or Shark Typhoon and kill them that way. So it's a very, very long process, but that is the game plan. Stall early, kill your opponent's things, counter your opponent's spells, and then play Teferi or the Wandering Emperor, and then protect it with your counter magic. And with that, let's go talk about the specific card choices. And to do that, I want to move stuff around. So if you excuse me, because I think it's really, really helpful to look at the deck in the pieces and understand why things are the way they are. And it might help visualize and understand the gameplay. So here we have our early interactive removal suite. So Portable Hole, Fateful Absence, and March of the Otherworldly Light. These are the cards you kind of want a couple in your opening hand, so that if your opponent's off to a fast start, you can then Portable Hole it, Fateful Absence, or March them, right? And that's important because if we go to too low a life total very, very quickly, we do not have time or the luxury of getting the card advantage going with our Teferi, right? So that is why these cards are important. Now, these cards aren't necessarily interchangeable, but what is important about a control deck to understand is that it is very adaptable to different metagames, right? If we wanted 4 portable holes because we knew decks were going to be just very, very aggressive and it was an environment where portable hole was really, really good, we would want to add that. More of those in the main deck. And you can take out other things. If we go to our counter magic spot specifically, Dovin's Veto is a very, very specific card. There are some decks, like maybe Absent, a lot of the creature decks with Collected Company, that only run one non-creature spell, right? Or maybe two. And so Dovin's Veto is not good in an environment where those are the only things you expect to face. And that you can kind of change your counter magic as well to fit the expected metagame. So we don't just expect to face Collected Company decks. Dovin's Veto is good against other things too, so that's why we have it here. But you can change these around, your counter magic and your removal, depending on what you expect to play. And then we have our removal suite, our counter magic, and now we also have our card draw. This is very, very small here. I mean, Teferi also draws a card. But this is our instant speed way to get back into the game to gain some card selection and card advantage so that you're able to kind of get the cards you need to interact with your opponent in a very, very specific way. I have Behold the Multiverse here as a little foretell theme. We have Saw It Coming, Behold, and Doomskar as all foretold cards. So your opponent, if you foretell something, your opponent can't necessarily tell what it is. Now, is that the most necessary thing? No, but I like it, so I'm going to include it. But Behold probably could be something else, or maybe you could include more Beholds. It's whatever you want, really. And then we have, this is also the bigger version of this removal pile, but this is the mass board wipe pile. And this is important because sometimes your opponent, and not sometimes, very, very likely, your opponent's going to generate a board that you couldn't counter. You didn't have your counter magic early, or you didn't draw your removal. And you need a way to kill as many creatures as you possibly can. And that's where Settle the Wreckage, Shatter, Doomskar, and Farewell come into play, and why they're a very, very important part of this deck. Is you have a kind of, these are your reset buttons where, okay, things have gone really, really terribly. Let me do this, and now we're back on an even playing field. And on an even playing field, this deck can then fight back and do its game plan with, resolving a Teferi or something, and then your opponent is going to lose, right? And again, these aren't necessarily interchangeable, but they can be. Maybe you Doomskar, maybe you don't need Doomskar. Maybe you just want something that's always 4 mana and reliable, so maybe you put it to Shatter. Settle does something a little different because you can keep your mana open, and it's also better against hasty Gruul creatures or mono red, and it's better than Shatter in that aspect, or Doomskar. And Farewell is good against the decks that have a lot of non-creature permanents, like the black-red sack decks with Oni, or the Jund sack decks with Trail of Crumbs and Witch's Oven. And that's why that's here. And then we have our final pile, which is kind of our win conditions, right? And they all function not just as ways to gain card advantage and creature advantage, but they are removal and that. So the Wandering Emperor is something that you can cast on the 4th turn, where you can then exile something or create a 2/2 samurai to block when your opponent's attacking. And the Wandering Emperor is really, really powerful for a lot of reasons. First, it has flash. You don't have to tap out during your main phase. You can hold up your counter magic or march or something to wait. Maybe you don't need to cast the Wandering Emperor, and you don't need to commit that mana. But if your opponent doesn't do anything, you can Wandering Emperor, and then you can start creating Samurai, and now when you untap, you have a Planeswalker on the battlefield, and a creature to defend it, and a creature that has Vigilance that can now start attacking your opponent. So the Wandering Emperor adds a really interesting texture to these white-blue control decks, because it is a surprisingly offensive card, and you can use it as such. And I mean, it's offensive and defensive, right? It literally does everything you want in this deck. And it might, Wandering Emperor is kind of the reason why this deck is very, very competitive and as good as it is. It might not seem as powerful as Teferi, but it's kind of the reason why it can compete against all these really, really aggressive low to the ground strategies. And it just fulfills the game plan of not being able, you do not need to cast the Wandering Emperor on turn 4 if you don't want to. And that's where I see a lot of people using her maybe incorrectly. Just because you can use your mana doesn't mean you need to. And also, maybe you should. I know I'm not saying a lot here, but the Wandering Emperor is a very, very difficult card to really use correctly, and that's where a lot of the fun of this deck is, because you have a lot of agency in this deck, but with her specifically, there are so many options all the time, and it's really, really fun to play around with her and go, oh, okay, I could have done this better. But she's an integral part of this deck and really, really powerful. Then we have Teferi, which everyone knows and everyone hates because he comes down on turn 5. And if he lives on the board for more than one turn, you're probably going to win. He just draws you cards, untaps your lands to be able to counter what your opponent's doing. he can come on the board and remove a problematic permanent, and then if he's not immediately killed, he'll start generating you more and more card advantage. He's just, again, like the Wandering Emperor, does so much, and it's such a little investment. And a lot of times, Teferi will resolve, and then you'll win. You won't win the actual game that turn or in the next turn, but Teferi will be the reason why you win. And it's something that, like, it usually doesn't ever come to this, but Teferi also has the ability to deck your opponent in a really, really weird way. And this is something that used to be a lot more common when it was in Standard. But once you get to maybe 8 loyalty, and you can activate Teferi's emblem, where whenever you draw a card, you exile target permanent and opponent controls, right? That's really, really, really good if you didn't know. But the important thing is, you can then, if you save up Teferi's loyalty, or you have another one in your hand, you can use Teferi to target himself, to put himself into your library, right? So you will never deck yourself, and if you're exiling your opponent's permanents and they can't cast anything or do anything, they will end up decking before you, because you say go, they draw a card, you untap and draw Teferi. Even if you have no library, you can then cast Teferi and tuck itself and repeat until your opponent is decked. And that's not gonna come into play a lot, but it is something that can happen specifically in mirror matchups when you're exhausting each other's permanents and everything. And so that's something to be aware of. And then we have Shark Typhoon, which you're rarely ever going to cast Shark Typhoon for its full enchantment. And it's almost always better to cycle it, because cycling does a lot of things. First, when you cycle it early game and it trades or chumps with another creature, like, it's something your opponent has to be aware of, like the Wandering Emperor. They cannot attack with creatures very, very freely early game, because, oh, you might have a 2/2 or 3/3 shark that can come out of nowhere and block. And if the Shark Typhoon token can block a creature and live, not only did you kill your opponent's creature, you still have a creature on the battlefield that can block in the future, and you drew a card. And that is kind of exactly what this deck wants to do. But later in the game, when you cycle Shark Typhoon, you can create a 7/7 or a 6/6 that will put your opponent on a huge, huge, huge clock, right? And that this deck can win, or it often wins in my experience, with the Shark Typhoon token coming out of nowhere. And so Shark Typhoon does everything, and yeah, that's why it's here. But like those are the pillars of the deck. So we have our early removal, our counter magic, our card draw, our mass removal, and then kind of our win conditions. And you can tell, like, these kind of like can go into, all these different spots, right? If you want. And that's why the win conditions in this deck are very powerful, because of their versatility, right? They can do a lot of these things in themselves and win you the game. Then we also have the lands, and I normally don't necessarily talk in depth about the lands, but we have 27 of them. Almost half our deck are lands, because you really need to hit your land drop every turn. This is a very, very mana-intensive deck. You have tons of ways to use your mana every turn. You have, the white and blue castle, which, scrying to what you need and creating 1/1s to either block or to kill your opponent if you need to. All of the Storm Giants is very, very important, because, like with Shark Typhoon, sometimes the game plan of this deck is you use your counter magic and removal to 1-for-1 your opponent, and then you both have nothing in your hand, and so you kill them with all of the Storm Giants. And then we also have Field of the Ruin, which is very important here, because the creature lands like Hive of the Eye Tyrant or Faceless Haven go through your counter magic, right? And so you need either a March of the Otherworldly Light, or Wandering Emperor to interact with it, and Field of Ruin is kind of another way for you to do that. And then we also have our sideboard, and the sideboard is how I like talk about the main deck where you can kind of adjust what you want. The sideboard, like always, is kind of there to make your counter magic and removal much more powerful against specific matchups. And against maybe decks where they don't have a lot of creatures, you can then take out your removal to add in more counter spells or vice versa, right? You know, so that's kind of basically what it is. It's not thing really specific. Farewell for more Cat Oven decks, Mystical Dispute for counter stuff, Dovin's Veto for decks with counter spells or spells you really need to counter, Aether Gust for red or green decks, right? And so that's kind of what this is. And you can, again, change your sideboard just like the main deck to what you expect to face and what you don't expect to face. But yeah, with that, let's go play some games. Well, this is a bad hand. I think we have 2 cycles, and maybe we would draw land. But I think we want to make sure that we have stuff. Alright, yeah, this is good. So I think I want to get rid of... I'm not sure there. Alright. I'm going to do that because I don't want to come into play tapped later, because we want to probably Memory Deluge on turn 4. Proxa. We'll get rid of that. And now we can Dovin's Veto a Fable if that's what they're going to do. Which they did. Oh, and we have a Saw Coming. Beautiful. So, this is kind of going fairly well. It sucks that we had a mulligan, but... you know, we are kind of doing exactly what we want to do. Which is 1-for-1ing our opponent until we can use our Memory Deluge to give us more stuff. And we're great. Oh, Teferi literally couldn't have been a better draw there. This is literally textbook what we want. And now we get to...
Hurry.
Wow. Wow, this is great. Not for our opponent. Chandra, that's fine. But we countered our opponent, and then we resolved the Planeswalker. And Teferi's just gonna give us so much card advantage that I highly doubt our opponent can come back from. Do I want to play Shark Typhoon? I'm gonna play Shark Typhoon content, everyone. I probably shouldn't have, and I should tell you how to do things correctly. But is it correct if we're not having fun? I don't think so. Okay. We do have to be a little worried about the Chandra ultimate. I don't think we have to right now. Because we have... during our opponent's next turn, we're gonna have ways to interact with the Chandra, but it's just something to be aware of. Our opponent's gonna probably attack the Teferi. If we're really worried about Chandra, we could always use the -3 of Teferi on her, but we're fine.
You know what? I'm not done yet.
We actually maybe could have cast the Memory Deluge during our turn.
This'll be easy. I'm not overconfident. Keep watch for intrigues.
And now we will plus that.
Remember your training.
There.
Now you're asking for it.
Let's draw.
Oh,
Another Emperor. GG. Okay. Let's have that happen again. So now, what do we want to sideboard here? So our opponent isn't incredibly aggressive, so I don't think I want to settle. And I don't think we want Farewell. It's a very expensive board wipe for what our opponent's doing. Aether Gust might be okay, because they have a lot of red things. I think I like Dream Trawler here. It can protect itself, they can't remove it very easily. And even if we play it, right, it's so good as just a blocker against a lot of their creatures. Do we want another Veto? Is the question. I think our deck might be fine. Yeah, let's go. So, sadly, we do not have a turn 2 counterspell yet, but we'll be fine. So Thoughtseize, not the greatest for us, but you know, we'll live. We'll just need to draw Dovin's Veto for their Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Or that. Come on, Fable. And they know we have the Absorb. And this is again where the power of this deck is, right? We can now cycle the Shark Typhoon if they don't do anything we want to absorb, and I don't think we want to absorb it. And so now we have a 1/1 that can maybe chump. They're gonna duress. We'll absorb. I don't want them to take Teferi. But also now we have a 2/2 that can trade with that, right? They'll probably stomp it, but I think that's fine. Or not, which we're also fine with.
You want to play with fire? Oh, today's my lucky
We would
day.
like a land here. No land, sadly. Our opponent could activate Den of the Bugbear,
Oh, this
which
is gonna
would
hurt.
be fairly decent for them. Chandra Awakened.
Anyone who
Inferno,
stands in my
okay.
way is getting sizzled. Aw,
Now we are on a
someone's
very,
getting
very
sweaty.
quick clock, everyone.
Sorry I'm late. Keep up the pace.
And the Inferno could kill that Teferi if they need it. Or if they want to. So this isn't wonderful for us.
No pressure.
But I haven't lost hope yet. That's what I was kind of hoping they would do.
This'll be easy.
Okay. I think Dream Trawler is probably the best thing we could get. So let's hope that happens.
No time for a break.
We have to do this. We're gonna
Slow this.
get rid of that Chandra.
You need to slow down.
Oh, looks like someone's getting a little sweaty.
I think we want to get rid of the castle now. Okay, this Chandra is starting to hurt a little bit.
You know what? I'm not done yet.
Not really what I want to be drawing, though. Hmm.
No pressure.
This is kind of really funny. I think it's funny. We do gain some life here.
Anyone who harms my people must contend with me.
I mean, the 2 life may be very, very relevant.
You are not much of a roadblock.
Okay. Let's draw a card.
Let's skip to the good part.
We're gonna put a counter on it.
We've got the edge in this fight.
We will attack our opponent at 5. We can counter whatever our opponent does. We also have a portable hole and thought coming for this. Opponent's like, oh, I need this Chandra the Teferi, right? I'm like, you can just say go. Okay.
Utterly
How long do
is
you
the best
wanna
way to
wait
destroy
for a
things.
rematch?
Hmm. I think we can let that resolve. I'm not sure what they have.
Strike fast and strike hard.
We do 5, 6, 7. Trying to think what our opponent could have in hand. So now if I do this, we could
Won't hide from the world any longer.
tuck the reflection, and we still have counter magic up.
Not ready for you quite yet.
And our opponent can only give us another emblem. I don't think we could have killed them that turn. Okay. We have one counterspell. Which hopefully will be good enough. Because I think our opponent has to try and use the Chandra to kill that, which is fine.
Bye-bye.
I'll behold.
Keep up the pace.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. GG. Oh my god. Now, this is one of the hands where Field of Ruin is not the best. Graveyard Trespasser, yep. Ouch. Okay. Oh, rip me. Well, doesn't that suck? Then we have to discard and absorb. Oh my. Come on, Wandering Emperor. Let's go. Hopefully we can showcase the power of the Emperor.
Feel the energy of battle, then guide it like water. You're done. I guess that's it then. May your blade strike true.
It'll push, okay. And they're blooding away a swamp.
I hope you're ready to lose.
Hi, Teferi.
This is what you get for hurting my people.
And now what does our opponent do? Hopefully just has 2 lands in hand. No!
I guess that's
No! That's not what we wanted. Alright, we're at 4. Wow. Come on, we need to draw a Teferi. No, what do you have in your hand? A braid? Oh my god. GG. Couldn't catch a break. So, interesting. I'm trying to figure out what we want here. Dream Trawler again. Don't know if I love the Dovin's vetoes here. Hmm. I'm not sure. Let's go. This is fine. Not great, but we have lands that we can cast or play. And I think Dream Trawler is probably the best card in this matchup. Because if it can resolve... Now what do you have here? Oh, I guess it is Teferi and a Dream Trawler. Alright, that's good.
Let's slow this down. We need to move quickly.
Canyon Slough, okay. And we get to March. Oh, this is so good now. Because Teferi lives through here, and we get a resolved Dream Trawler. And our opponent could have removal for it, but it's probably highly unlikely they do.
No more games. Hurry.
We're just... Alright, can that get... Oh, that does not get anything. We block there. Yeah, this is exactly... I mean, this has to be almost impossible for our opponent to win from. Unless they have direct removal for the Dream Trawler and, like, I sacrifice a flyer. Because I also... Let's do that. Because direct removal doesn't do anything because we can give it, what, hexproof, right? So let's hope. I mean... GG. Alright. Okay. Dream Trawler is good. Is really, really good. Maybe I do want Shatter, though. I don't know. This isn't good. We don't have really any counter magic or anything. But, oh, well, that's the move I was looking for. Okay. But I don't hate that, like, we have to cycle the shark. Or get rid of the shark. Having a Censor here would be amazing. Duress, okay. By Teferi, probably. Memory Deluge, so they have the Trespasser. Oh. What a great top deck there. Alright, Teferi.
I'm not going to sing this one. You know what? I'm not done.
Are they gonna... Yep. Oh, and this Dream Trawler is gonna seal the deal. Hopefully. Hopefully.
Oh, that thought.
Five there. Yeah. This is the game. We're just drawing how many cards a turn? Gaining how much life? I mean, but there is a series of cards that probably could get them back into this game, but doubt. That has to be the nail in the coffin, right? We're drawing 3 cards a turn. We're gaining how much life? But you know what? I appreciate our opponent keep on trying.
Enough.
That is the type of enthusiasm that we all need. Or optimism. No, we don't need any of that.
Hurry.
Like, I don't even know what you do here. We have just as many cards as them. We have 2 permanents that they have to kill. We love the Settle the Wreckage plan, or animation. Oh! I needed to do it until after it resolved. I didn't even think of that. That was silly. Could you imagine if
I
that
won't
comes
let you
back
win.
and bites me? GG. Our opponent has had enough. Thank you for watching me play some Blue-White Control and Explorer. The deck, as you saw, is really, really powerful. And I love it. Again, not everyone is a control player, but for those of us who are, this is kind of something that we just can play for hours, right? Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, is a card that when it resolves and you get to untap with it, there's almost never a better feeling in all of Magic for people who love that type of stuff. And this deck just functions very well. I think it's pretty good in the current metagame. I think you could tweak some things, and what I would do if I were playing it in the qualifier this weekend is I'd probably really consider bringing in Dream Trawler to the main deck. Dream Trawler is phenomenal against a lot of the black, red, mid-range decks. They don't really have any way to remove it, maybe besides from a Soul Shatter in like the sideboard, but even then they might not even be prepared for it. And so I would really highly recommend doing that because the mid-range deck can kind of remove your hand and attack you in a way that is really, really good against you. And you don't have a lot of ways to combat them really, really effectively or efficiently because your counter magic and your removal can sometimes line up really awkward against what they're doing. But Dream Trawler is a card that, if it resolves, unlike Teferi, they can't really easily remove it. Unlike the Wandering Emperor, you know, it's really hard for them to interact with. And so this is a card where I would probably suggest finding room in the main deck. What? I don't know. That's for you to decide, or maybe me to decide for later. But yeah, this deck is great, and I hope you at least enjoyed it, or the video, or had some fun with it. I know I did. But if you haven't already, you should totally comment, like, or subscribe on this video. It's a great way of supporting me and the channel. I also stream live on Twitch at twitch.tv/thenerdysteve, and I would love to see you there. But regardless, I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon wherever you are, and thanks for watching. Bye.